and then we're going to get to the painting that we were working on yesterday. So real quick, I am going to go pull up my laptop because I always like to be able to see what's going on my live stream. So let's do this. Super quick and easy. Go to my channel. Try not to burn my laptop down. I can't say I've ever done anything quite like that, but I have a little burn mark on this kettle here, which is no fun. Okay, I think we're good. Looks good. Looks like I'm the only one watching, which is just fine. Running low on this coffee. Yesterday, I was able to make decent progress on the painting that I am working on today, and I was hopeful that I would return to it and take a look at what I had done and then maybe reassess and make some other thoughts here. But I didn't really have a good chance to do that, and kind of did a lot of running around yesterday. And then today we're gonna see, I think I've got yet more running around to do. And I have to go to the bank real quick for a thing. I was gonna go to the gym. I was thinking about going to the gym before this, but I figured I would paint and use my creative hours in the morning. And then I will be going to the gym and then probably try to use that second wind on like writing. I have a lot of writing projects that I'm doing right now. The first is that I'm just writing for the blog that I maintain on my website. And then the second is that I'm working on a like kettlebell fitness course. And in doing the kettlebell fitness course, I have had a couple different thoughts of what should be the actual minimum viable product here. And I think basically just a PDF that has like a planner and kind of keeps you organized over some amount of time is kind of the direction that I'm planning on taking that. And so that's pretty much done, but I'm trying to make it look really nice and make sure that I don't miss anything. And then I'm gonna need to record some videos and that sort of thing for it. So, got a lot of different thoughts there. Get some ice for this guy. Cool. Hope you guys can hear me okay, by the way. Can you guys hear me? Got nothing in the chat, which is kind of strange sometimes. Let's see it. So yeah, anyway, a lot of writing projects. I was trying to like recap my month of September, and I feel like I had a really good September, but it was crazy. I started out this month, I went to Boise. I drove up with some friends. We hung out with another one of my artist friends and did a lot of different random crazy stuff. And that was good. I tried to use it as like an art networking event, but I didn't end up really selling anything. I think that there are inroads to sell later, but I didn't have any like immediate sales or anything like that. So, pretty sure you guys should be able to hear me. Maybe I'm crazy. Let me turn this up. Yeah. Sounds fine to me. So, anyway. Yeah. Oh, this water got cold way too fast. And yeah, so the kettlebell thing that I'm thinking about writing, I've done like the first 3 weeks of the fitness course. And as you can see here is just one good example. So my thought for the kettlebell fitness course, and we could even do a circuit live at some point now that I'm using YouTube and I'm aiming to record these. The concept is that I think a lot of people have a really hard time getting started in the gym because they aren't familiar with some of the like foundational exercises that you should be doing or could be doing. And that makes it really tough because you now have like multiple hurdles to get over if you're ever trying to get into the gym. And I think that building action familiarity is great because you just basically will lift weights, become super familiar with how certain movements work, and then you're a lot less afraid of like looking like you're doing them wrong, which I think is actually a pretty big concern. People are anxious to go into the gym and be like, I don't know how to do this thing. So that's my thought. But anyhow, let's get this done here. Get a little cup of ice. A little bit under there. Let's see here. Perfect. I got these really cool soda cups from my good friend Jared in Boise. I don't know if the lighting, you probably can't really see these super well, but really fun soda pieces. Thrown on a kick wheel. Love his ceramics. Perfect. Oh, that's still going. Jumping the gun here. All right. Very nice. Usually I don't have coffee as like the very, very first thing that I do unless I'm writing, but you know. All right, let's try this. Cool. So yesterday, I think I said that I was going to try to get my lightest lights in here pretty early. And that's not a bad idea. I do have, like, this is my lightest light, and then my second lightest light, I've got a little spot up here, and then I've got a couple spots right here. And I'm not trying to do this as a highlight, but I am trying to just understand where is the lightest part of this painting. So I think I'm gonna get that near lightest light first. Which is pretty much just this whole zone. And that might be a little too light. I don't want to use basically pure white. That's probably pretty close. Yeah, so we've got this stuff. This is a very blocky looking cloud. For the time being, that's okay. I think most of this stuff is going to be modified immensely when we do the thick pass, the textured pass over it. So it's not really essential to me that I get this correct per se in like edges and lines. So let's get this a little lighter. Yeah, because even this kind of value, I think that has a lot more Portland cool gray, which was effective. You can hear me. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. El Mapache? El Mapache. My YouTube font is like way too tiny. Okay. Or my eyes are getting worse, which is probably also true, but... Alright. Coffee break. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Okay. So... how's this thing doing? I wonder... my iPad dies quite a bit. No, it's fine. Totally fine. Yeah, so the only thing is that these, like, the edges really for all of this stuff should be pretty soft, so I probably will need to add a bit more paint and then work that soft edge in here. Um, Again, working with a palette knife, it's a little harder to do that. I haven't really found like lovely ways to blend stuff with a palette knife. Um, it's just kind of one of those things that I like. I can do it, just doesn't really ever satisfy me. Um, but maybe that's just a technical fault of my own here. So trying to not get too much paint on here. I should have brought this blue up a little bit higher. That's kind of a shame, but again, not super imperative. So interesting. Again, I pivoted from live streaming on TikTok to now streaming here, and YouTube doesn't really enable you to play music. So it's kind of a funny state of being where I'm kind of just standing here, like, got a lot of listening to a lot of my own thoughts here, which is just fine. But it cracks me up because it's not the way that I used to work. So okay, and then we've got our actual lightest light right here. I'm very tempted to start laying on some thicker paint, but I'm not gonna do that. I really want, like, I see this cloud, I go, ooh, let's make it painterly, and I'm not gonna do that. Not yet. It's just not quite right. It's still in that, like, really thin, scumbling phase. And my paint is still wet from yesterday, so I'm gonna try my darndest to not get any of the stuff um, from the dark layer into this light layer. What's up, Ozzy? What's up, Eleanor? How's it going? Much wider view here and a wider painting. Yes, absolutely. It's interesting because I am still figuring out my YouTube settings and things. So if you have any thoughts and you're like, oh, hey, please, you should be recording horizontal or whatever, just let me know because it is. I feel like each platform has its own differences of like how people like to watch content. I think people on YouTube like to watch stuff on their computer, or at least that's how I do. Um, I don't use my phone much on for YouTube, but I know that that's not always the case for everybody. But yeah, if you've got any thoughts and you're like, oh, please do this setting instead or whatever, let me know. It always helps to have some thought for that. Okay, and then this over here is also pretty light. I kind of got this color pretty close the first time. I'm excited to see where this painting goes. I really was waiting on it for a long time because I had a lot of other different projects that I'm working on, and so it became like tough for me to actually get the impetus to start it beyond what I had started it as. I think there's like different levels of starting a painting. Like I've done like underpaintings and like some semblance of blocking, and it's like, yeah, those are starting, but are they really like getting it going? Not really. So definitely an adjustment. Live isn't as easy. Let's see, I gotta bump this up, make the text bigger. Nope, not that big. Isn't as easy as other place. YouTube has gotten so much more mobile friendly. That's true. That is true. So this painting here is actually a photograph of, or it's from a reference of a photograph I took in not Utah, Idaho. And I'll show you the reference real quick. I think I'm pretty clean on paint. So yeah, so this is the reference that we're working with. And it looks like very deserty, right? Or like almost like a sand dune right now. It's not quite that yet. Hope that is reasonable to display. And yeah, so essentially all that I'm aiming to do right now is just get my blocking in. So I'm aiming to have reasonably accurate colors, reasonably accurate forms. I don't care too much about the actual lines that I've done. I'm mostly concerned about the drawing and the composition rather than any of the like edges or anything like that. So basically just getting this on here as reasonably as possible. And I think in a painting it's interesting because you kind of have to work with spilling coffee, some amount of fidelity that is what's the word? Yeah, like consistent across. You want the fidelity of your painting to be somewhat consistent. So in doing this painting, Slash can just go there, coffee, water. Like as you add details and add granularity and like things that are like rendering or any amount of like coarse to fine, you kind of want to be consistent as you paint it. So I've gotten a little bit more detailed about my shapes in my clouds. So now I'm going to be a little bit more detailed about the shapes in the foreground and then kind of keep doing that back and forth until I feel like it's pretty reasonable that now I add some actual details. So yeah, it was a fun trip. I took that photo over a year ago now, so I'm actually really excited at the opportunity to paint it here. Really good fun. Okay. Again, looking a little bit strange, but I think for a lot of these, it's really interesting because in my style in particular, I like to go crazy with the foreground, and a lot of times I don't know what to do in terms of that going crazy until I'm like fairly far along. So I think now that I have done a little bit more detail here, it's going to be a lot easier to just let it organically evolve. Paint mess. Okay, so yeah, and I think my like Naples yellow is I overshot it in some way. I actually really like this red color. Mm, hmm. I'm gonna add my darker, like slightly darker blocks in here. I have an interesting line that comes all the way down here that is like predominantly Naples yellow. It's a pretty light line, so I think I'm gonna get that on here real quick. So it starts pretty much all the way up here and ends pretty much right here. Something like that. And then we kind of have another one that's sort of floating around over here. And my sky color is a little bit wet. Yeah. And then I would love to figure out my slightly darker, kind of a brown. So we're going to use a little bit of this light red, get this much redder, and then add some Prussian blue to it. Kind of go for this interesting gray. Light red and Naples yellow are just such bright colors. The pigments themselves are coming out of the tube super bright. Kind of hard to darken them down consistently. Yeah, sounds great. I should be here for, I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but probably like at least 15 more minutes, 20 more minutes maybe. Very casual. Okay, let's think about this. That was too much blue. Well, maybe not. There's a lot of blue. Maybe not too much blue. This is less of a brown and more of a gray. I haven't decided any other pigments that I was actually going to use for this painting. Yeah, how do I feel about this? I feel like this is actually not a terrible call here. It needs more Naples yellow. It just does. It's going to make it slightly greener, which is like fine. Yeah. The thing is, the value is pretty close, so I'm sort of like tempted to just go for it. I don't hate that. Slightly redder, maybe. My phone is blowing up. Yeah, fix this. Please stop. Here we go. The thing is, okay, so I have a lot of different thoughts here as I am considering adding some darker paint here. The first thing that I'm seeing is that this dark is pretty close to this dark, and this dark is a little bit redder, is the only thing about it. but in terms of value, they're like pretty close. And they're both lighter than the actual house that I was planning on painting here, as well as all of the trees. So I'm kind of like, did I go too dark for my darks? And I think the answer is yes, that I absolutely did do that. So we are going to see if we can pivot here. I'm going to make this light red a little bit darker. Get this sort of muddy light red color, which I think is a-okay, just like this. Like I said, light red is inherently fairly light already. Yeah, that's like probably a little bit better to work with, is sort of how I'm seeing this. Kind of has this nice like irony, rustic sense to it. Okay, and then I figured out where my house was, which is over here somewhere. So I never actually finished the rest of this sky. That's obnoxious. Why did I do that? Yeah, so for the blocking for the house, really quite a lot of it, this whole thing kind of comes up here. So we have, okay, sorry, I'm really all over the place. A lot of different things to consider. So there's a tree that's right here. That one's pretty easy to just know where that is. The tree is actually the end of this dark stuff that pretty much floats all the way down into where the ridge of the hill, I can talk, floating right there. And then this shoots up a little bit more. And I think we are going to stick with that color. I think that's totally reasonable. And then this stuff doesn't trace exactly into this line, but it's pretty close. So. This pretty much comes all the way over, all the way up to the horizon. And yeah, I think we can just keep doing this whole thing. The end of the house is here. The other part of it comes out to like here. That's not incorrect yet. So all this stuff, I'm gonna make this dark more or less like this. And we've got some bushes and some interesting stuff over here. There's a really interesting line that sort of floats up and through, but I'm gonna ignore that. I'm not gonna ignore it, but I'm not gonna paint it. I like that line a lot. Okay. That looks pretty good to me. We do have a lot of other little dark bits, which I think those are going to be good for textured blobs. We'll save those for later. Um, yeah, what else can I say about this painting? What's up, Dylan? How's it going? Hmm. I don't know if I'm still live here. I think so. Surely. Yep, looking good. My phone is catching some light and it's probably really washed out. Okay, so we've got a lot of interesting blocks here. Um, hmm. This actually needs to come up even further. I feel like I'm missing chat. Testing out some graphic design ideas. That sounds cool. What kind of graphic design ideas are you testing? Bring this all the way up here. The middle of this house, I think I said, is like pretty much right here. Okay, that looks good to me. Where else do we have this color? Not really a ton else. There's a little tiny bit in the foreground. Beneath where these bushes are gonna be. Which I think I elongated this section way too much, or I didn't bring this cloud out nearly enough, which I think that's actually more accurate, is that the cloud needs to come out all the way to here. Because this, yeah, that's totally true. The cloud comes out to here. So this is beneath that. This is right here. I feel okay about smacking this on here. Probably gonna have to go back over that. Okay. Logo design, I'm a beginner in graphic design. I believe logo design is my weaker skill. Interesting, that's cool. I know nothing about graphic design, so why do you say logo design is your weaker skill? Like, what goes into different skills in graphic design? I'd be curious. Mm. I've done like all of the design for my website myself, but it's I'm like such a rookie with all that stuff. I used to be a software engineer, but I don't know anything about like I know a good amount about UX design, but like any of the front end stuff, I really didn't like working on the front end. I would, but I prefer being like back end stuff because all of the graphic design stuff, I'm like, save that for somebody else. So, um, yeah, interesting stuff. Tell me more. Okay, that looks right. And then we've got the other continuation of this dark as it connects and then it spans all the way down here. So let's get that on here. That's probably a little bit too much light red. Pull some Naples yellow onto here as well. I gotta go grab more ice for my coffee, which I have paint hands, so I guess I'll just wait. I'll just wait. Okay, so we mixed some good grays using Naples yellow and light red and Prussian blue. And now I'm mixing light red into Prussian blue. I would love to get a streaming setup at some point here where I have my like good camera for my like main display, and then I'd be really curious about doing a how close did we get that? That's not too bad. This needs to be a little bit lighter, so I'm gonna add more Naples yellow to this. But yeah, then I was kind of thinking about doing like my phone camera as my sort of secondary camera where you can see what I'm doing on my palette. I think that would be a lot of fun. So I haven't really tinkered around with my streaming setup. I have the way to stream from my camera. Um, I just haven't done that in a really, really long time. I feel like I tried it on YouTube. I was using OBS, and that kind of worked. Okay, but it's been a minute, so we're gonna have to tinker around with that again at some point. Um, okay, so this connects pretty much all the way up here. We have a. I'm just gonna connect these forms. I don't know why I'm dancing around that. And there goes my laptop. Not even sure. I feel like I'm better at poster design, album design, and related things. Huh, yeah. It's, I guess logo design is interesting in the fact that it has to be like simplistic in a way where it's still communicating a lot all right away. Um, can't really say. Okay, yeah, kind of breaking one of the rules here with painting where it's sort of like if you can connect your forms, if you have forms that need to be connected, I'm gonna bring this out a little bit further. This kind of actually comes down to the middle of this line, which I'm pretty confident about. Um, if you have multiple forms and they are like, you might as well just connect them. There's no real reason to make them disparate until down the line. You can always do that later. So, kind of a good thing to keep in mind. Okay. This guy pretty much just comes out, it kind of fans out just a little bit. Hit this peak here, and then we go down here. Starts to kind of fan out. And I'm just gonna let that kind of look like this. I'm not gonna worry too much about what this actually looks like because I think I want the majority of my focal point to be up here. So it's kind of one of these things where I'm willing to understand that through this painting, we're gonna be a little bit more and more and more abstract as we get further this way, further to the right of the painting. And by abstract, I don't necessarily mean abstract. I just mean like kind of undefined. Like the representation of the forms, I think, is going to be a lot weightier, so to speak. Okay. I think this is actually a really good place to call it for now. I think I'm gonna need to block in the house, which is here after my sky is a little bit drier, and then I'm going to block in these trees that I am hoping to work on. There's a second house that sits like right here, and then a third house that sits like right here. So we do have quite a bit of interesting things that will come up in this painting down the line. So anyhow, I think that might be it for me then. So thanks so much for joining, everybody. I hope that my stream was at least either informational or just fun. And I am planning on doing these more and more in the morning. And I might start doing some PM streams. I do want to experiment around with my camera setup. I got to go find all my equipment for my streaming. I know for a fact that I have those available somewhere. Got to figure that out. So, anyhow, yeah, thank you, Jacob. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you were able to catch this one as well. And Dylan, appreciate you as well. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's always like interesting how it doesn't really look like anything, and then it kind of starts, and then it's really like along the way. So, yeah, I'm gonna go do a couple errands here, and maybe stream again later this evening. Today's Thursday. Yeah, we'll see. Hard to say. Thanks for joining. Catch you around.